Okay. So now we are at verse 19. She laid her hands to the spindle, and her hands hold the staff. She stretched her hand to the poor, yea, she reached forth her hands to the needy. So a virtuous woman is a giver. And when I say giver, I don't mean you should give away everything that you have. Remember, you have to save something for home. But I believe no matter how little we have, it can divide into and we can share. So a virtuous woman, look out for those who are in need and help them. And while you're helping, you also have to be wise. There are people who they're not necessarily in need, but they are just greedy. And so you have to do the difference between someone who is in need and someone who is just being greedy. 21. She's not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. So she ensures that the necessities are provided for in the family. So food is a necessity. Shelter is a necessity. Clothing is a necessity. So what this verse is saying, that even when you have extreme of weather, she's not worried because she knows that her family has the appropriate clothing. She makes it herself coverings of tapestry. Her clothing is silk and purple. Her husband is known in the gates when he sitteth among the elders of the land. So the term that comes to me is a power couple, right? So a virtuous woman, I mean, the Bible said that woman is the weaker vessel, but a virtuous woman augments her husband. So she puts him a little higher than if he had been on his own or even with somebody else. So a virtuous woman is an asset in a marriage. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. She openeth her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness. So a virtuous woman is somebody who can serve as a mentor. They are capable of giving good advice. They have the gift of wisdom. And, you can have an older, more mature woman who is not wise. Not everybody. We must come with age for everybody, right? But a virtuous woman does possess wisdom. She looketh well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness. In other words, a virtuous woman is busy. Doesn't spend time doing foolishness. Whatever she does, there is purpose to it. And that doesn't mean that there isn't downtime where you have fun. Remember, there is a balance. But most of the time, you shouldn't spend most of your time watching soap operas and just surfing on YouTube for hours and hours and hours. Some of that time should be spent investing in your family, your children, your spouse, your household. And a lot of times, if we keep busy, we would keep ourselves out of trouble. Many daughters have done virtuously, but thou excellest them all. Favor is deceitful, and beauty is vain. But a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her of the truth of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gate. So just like how Ruth, everybody could talk about Ruth, that she left everything that was familiar to her to accompany her mother-in-law to Israel. I mean, that was the legacy, of Ruth, and part of being a virtuous woman is knowing who God is, and your actions. People should speak positively about your actions. Just like the verse earlier said that her husband is known in the gate. So she augments her husband, and so he is known, at work, he's known, among his company. and people can speak good of him because of his wife. She makes sure that when he leaves the house, that he is appropriately dressed, his clothes are laundered and ironed, he smells clean, he's shaved. Being a virtuous woman doesn't mean you're going to be a nag. There is a difference. There's a difference, but you know how to kind of encourage your husband so he puts his best, foot forward. And so Boaz told Ruth that what he heard about her, he knew that she was a virtuous woman. So now we are back to chapter 3 of Ruth and verse 12. And now it is true that I am thy near kinsman, howbeit there is a kinsman nearer than I. So Boaz letting Ruth know that yes, he is a relative of hers, but he cannot be the kinsman redeemer. He said, what do we mean by kinsman redeemer? It means that he cannot marry her and their children are raised up as children of her deceased husband, Marlon. And the reason being is because there is a relative that is closer in line than he is. It's like having, cousin one generation removed and a cousin 2 generations removed. So let's say Boaz is a cousin 2 generations removed. There is a male cousin who is 1 generation removed. Okay? So it's something like that. There is a closer relative than Boaz. And because there is a closer relative than Boaz, then that relative has first dibs. So what Boaz told Ruth in verse 13 was, tarry this night, and it shall be in the morning that if he will perform unto thee the part of a kinsman, then let him do it. But if he will not do the part of a kinsman, then I will do the part of a kinsman to thee. As the Lord liveth, lie down until the morning. And she lay at his feet until the morning, and she rose up before one could know another. And he said, let it not be known that a woman came into the floor. So what Boaz told Ruth was, just wait, be patient. Like Psalm 27 and the 14th verse say, wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen thy heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. And I believe in the book of Isaiah, it reminds us that those that wait on the Lord, their strength shall be renewed. He shall renew their strength. And wait, having patience is a challenge. If we're honest with ourselves, once we get that idea, we just want everything to start going, and like I said, God's timing is different from our timing, and God's timing is perfect. It may seem like it's taking eternity, but God's timing is perfect. And so Boaz was saying, wait. And some of us, especially women, because we have a biological clock, and like I said, when we are young, we should always be setting goals for ourselves. And you might say, well, I want to get a college degree by the time I'm 23. I want to have a graduate degree by the time I'm 25. And I want to be married by the time I'm 27. I want to have my first child by the time I'm 30. Whatever goals that you set for yourself. With women, when it comes to childbearing, there is a clock. Scientists will tell you that the childbearing age is up to age 44. And there are plenty of women who have had children after that age. I'm not saying that we should wait until we are 80 like Sarah, but we have to admit that there is a time after which fertility becomes an issue. And I know that, a lot of women are having issues with fertility now because they have chosen to do the career thing first before they decide to start a family. But as opposed to women, men don't have that issue. They can have conceive, participate in conception, what I should say, even the day before they die at age 100. Of course, the older that man is, there is a higher risk of having a child with genetic defects, things like that. But Boaz told Ruth to wait. He wants to see if this closer male relative will do the part of kinsman redeemer. So will this closer male relative decide to marry Ruth and raise up their children to her deceased husband? And Boaz promised her that if this closer relative does not do his part, then Boaz himself will do it. And Boaz was very discreet. He said, don't let anybody know that a woman was here. So when he said the floor, he was talking about the threshing floor where they were cleaning up the bar. He said, don't let anybody know that a woman was here. And just like later on in the New Testament, you read about Mary and Joseph. Remember, Mary was conceived by the Holy Ghost, and so the only virgin birth that we'll ever know of. And at the time, she was engaged to Joseph. And Joseph, wanted, to put her away, the Bible said, privately. So he wanted to do it secretly so he wouldn't embarrass her. And so, just like Boaz, Joseph was being discreet. And so that's a good quality. Before, you say, I do, pay attention to the qualities of your future husband. If you don't pay attention to those qualities, it can make or break a marriage. After you say, I do, you realize that he has some qualities that you just absolutely can't put up with. And nobody is perfect. No marriage is perfect. And there are going to be things about each other that the other person doesn't like. But there are also things that you absolutely cannot put up with. And so we know that Boaz has at least one good quality. He is he knows how to be discreet. Okay? So the next verse, verse 14. And she lay at his feet until the morning, and she rose up before one could know another. And he said, let not be known that a woman came into the floor. He also said, bring the veil that thou hast upon thee, and hold it. And when she held it, he measured 6 measures of barley, and laid it on her, and she went into the city. So the part of her clothing where she could hold out. If you ever watch movies that feature stories in the Bible, they have got a lot of layers of clothing. And so the outer layer, she could pull it away from her and use it like an apron or something. He was able to pour some barley in it for her to take home to Naomi. And when she came to her mother-in-law, she said, who art thou, my daughters? In other words, Naomi was asking for an update. And Ruth told Naomi all that Boaz did. And Ruth said, these 6 measures of barley gave he me. For he said to me, go not empty unto thy mother-in-law. Then said she, sit still, my daughter, until thou know how the matter will fall. For the man will not be in rest until he have finished the thing this day. So again now, Naomi is now advising Ruth to wait, to be patient. That's why she said, sit still. All right? And, you might be praying about something and you don't feel like your prayers are being answered quickly enough. And, I always say that some of us have spiritual ADHD or hyperactivity. We just can't sit still. We can't wait. And one of the I think in 2 Chronicles chapter 20, when you have a chance, read that chapter. When Judah was being fought by 3 different nations. 3 different nations came together to fight against Judah. And one of the things that God told the prophet to tell King Jehoshaphat is to be still, stand still, and see God's salvation. And so it is for us to learn to be patient. And I'm not just telling you, I'm telling myself also to learn to be patient and just wait on the Lord. don't run ahead of God. And it's hard. I'll be the first to tell you, it is hard. The problem is when we run ahead, we mess things up, and then we have to come back and wait on God anyway to kind of clear that mess up that we did because we were so, impatient. And I think about Abraham and Sarah. God promised them that he's going to give them a child of promise. And they were old people. And I want to remind myself and you that God is the one that make babies. Yes, man and woman might do the mechanics, but at the end of the day, God is the one that make babies. And so he made a promise to Abraham and Sarah long after Sarah clock had done tick. That childbearing clock had stopped. That stopped ticking. And yet he made this promise that they're going to have a child of promise. And I don't know if they didn't believe God that he was able to do it, but they were trying to help God. And I can tell you that God doesn't need any help from us. And because of them trying to help God, they mess things up. They mess things up. And even today, we are experiencing those repercussions from that decision. Sarah told Abraham to sleep with her maid Hagar. Hagar had a child called Ishmael. Ishmael descendants are the Arabs now in the Middle East. The child of promise was Isaac. Isaac descendants are the Israelites, and all you have to do is just turn your television on, MSNBC, CNN, and NBC, whichever news channel you want to look at. Look at YouTube, look at Google. There is always unrest in that part of the world. And like I said, we are still dealing with the repercussions from